somewhere beneath the surface of the equatorial Pacific right now, a pool of heat is spreading that has never been measured before. Not in 1877, not in 1997, not in 2015, not in any year since record-keeping began. Scientists are not speculating about this. NOAA confirmed it on August 13, 2026, in its most recent ENSO diagnostic update. El Niño has strengthened again. Subsurface temperature anomalies beneath the ocean have spiked to more than 10 degrees Celsius above normal, and the probability of this becoming a very strong El Niño this fall and winter has now crossed 90%. But here's the number that should actually stop you. Berkeley Earth, one of the most respected independent climate research groups in the world, reports that the Niño 3.4 index, the benchmark scientists use to measure this event, has already climbed to roughly 2.7 degrees Celsius above average as of July. That is a level past El Niño only reaches at its peak. This one hit it months early. If you want to understand why that matters for you personally, whether you live in Los Angeles, Houston, Minneapolis, or anywhere in between, stay with this video, because we are about to walk through exactly what this event does to American weather region by region, and why the story does not stop with El Niño. Before we go further, if this kind of breakdown is useful to you, drop a comment with the state or region you live in so we know what to cover next. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the winter update, and let's get into it. To understand what is coming, you have to understand what El Niño physically is. Along the equator, a massive stretch of the Pacific runs from Indonesia to the coast of South America. Normally, trade winds blow east to west, pushing warm surface water toward Asia and leaving cooler water near Peru and Ecuador. Every few years, those winds weaken. When they do, the warm water that was piled up near Asia sloshes back east, stacking up off South America and radically changing where storms form over the ocean. Because Pacific storm patterns steer the jet stream and the jet stream steers weather across the entire United States, this single shift in ocean temperature ends up rearranging the whole American storm track for months at a time. On June 11, 2026, NOAA moved its official ENSO alert from a watch to an advisory, meaning El Niño was no longer a forecast. It was confirmed and already underway. Since then, it has not slowed down, it has accelerated. NOAA's Climate Prediction Center now puts the odds at roughly 69% that this event exceeds every El Niño on record dating back to 1950, measured by the relative Oceanic Niño Index. Berkeley Earth's Zeke Housefather, who tracks these forecasts across 14 independent model systems and more than 650 ensemble members, put it bluntly in his July analysis. No El Niño in the modern record has run this hot this early. The multi-model forecast now points to a peak Niño 3.4 anomaly near 4 degrees Celsius around November 2026, which would blow past the previous record holder, the 2015-16 event, which topped out around 2.75 degrees. So what does a Pacific this hot actually do to the United States this winter? Split the country in half and you have the basic pattern. The southern tier gets pounded with storms. The northern tier gets an oddly mild winter, with one dangerous exception we will get to. Start with Southern California, historically the region hit hardest by a strong El Niño. Climate scientist Daniel Swain has pointed to forecast models showing elevated odds of an above-average storm-heavy winter across the state, with a real chance this ranks among the wetter winters on record. That is a serious problem for a region that has spent the last several years fighting wildfires because burn scars do not absorb rain. They shed it straight into flash floods and debris flows. During the 1997-98 event, the last time an El Niño reached this intensity, atmospheric rivers tore through Los Angeles and San Diego, washing out highways and flooding communities that had never flooded before. The Sierra Nevada, meanwhile, tends to get buried in snow during strong El Niño winters, which sounds good for water supply until you remember that heavy snowpack raises avalanche risk and can cut off mountain communities, and a fast spring melt can overwhelm rivers downstream. Move east to the Gulf Coast, Texas, through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, and NOAA's Climate Prediction Center flags this stretch as one of the areas with the highest odds of above-normal winter rainfall extending up into the southeast and mid-Atlantic. That means an elevated risk of flash flooding, river flooding, and yes, winter tornado outbreaks, because the jet stream gets pushed south and collides with warm, moist Gulf air. Florida, in particular, tends to draw the short straw in strong El Niño years, facing more severe storms and a longer tornado threat window than usual. Now flip to the northern half of the country. The polar jet stream typically stays pinned further north during El Niño, holding the coldest Arctic air back and giving the Pacific Northwest, Upper Midwest, and Great Lakes a milder, lower snow winter than normal, while parts of the Ohio Valley could stay drier than usual, which risks deepening existing drought. But here's the wild card that makes meteorologists nervous even in a mild-leaning winter: the polar vortex. When it's strong, it traps Arctic air up near the pole. When it weakens or collapses, sometimes triggered by something called a sudden stratospheric warming event, that cold air can spill south all the way into Texas or Florida. Research has found El Niño winters carry a higher frequency of these disruptions, especially in December and January, meaning the northern U.S. could still see sudden, sharp, cold snaps layered on top of an otherwise mild season, and when Arctic air collides with unusually warm air already in place, the result can be an explosive winter storm. The Northeast has the murkiest outlook of anywhere, since a strong subtropical jet can fuel powerful coastal nor'easters, but whether those systems bring rain, snow, or ice depends entirely on exactly where the cold air sits, and a small shift in track is the difference between a rainy inconvenience and a major blizzard. Now, here's where this story needs an honest correction, because it's easy to assume El Niño only brings chaos. In one specific area, it's actually calming things down. Atlantic hurricanes. NOAA's August 6th, 2026 update lowered its seasonal forecast to just 7 to 13 named storms, 2 to 6 hurricanes, and 0 to 2 major hurricanes, well below the long-term average, and raised the probability of a below-normal season to 75%. The reason is wind shear. A strengthening El Niño increases upper-level winds across the Atlantic, and that shear tends to tear developing storms apart before they can organize. NOAA hurricane forecaster Matt Rosenkrantz has said plainly that once El Niño matures, it becomes the dominant factor in the entire season's activity. 2 storms have already formed this year, Arthur and Bertha, but the broader pattern this fall is expected to stay quiet compared to a typical year, one of the only pieces of good news in this whole forecast. Here's the part of the story that goes beyond El Niño entirely, because this event isn't unfolding on a normal planet, it's unfolding on one that's already running hot. Berkeley Earth's July 2026 analysis found the month came in as the second warmest July on record globally, with ocean temperatures also ranking among the warmest ever measured for that month. And El Niño is not creating that heat from nothing. It's pulling existing warmth out of the deep Pacific and dumping it into the atmosphere on top of an already elevated baseline. That combination is why Berkeley Earth chief scientist Robert Rode said the world is likely to see something dramatic in the next year or so, conditions that would normally be expected a decade or more away. According to Berkeley Earth's own tracking, the odds of 2026 becoming the hottest year on record jumped from just 12% in July to 69% by August, an extraordinarily fast shift. Because the global temperature response to El Niño typically lags the ocean's peak warmth by a few months, if the Pacific tops out near November or December of this year, the biggest global heat impact is expected to land in early 2027. Housefather's own analysis, shared with the Washington Post, puts the odds at 95% that the combined effect of this El Niño and the underlying warming trend makes 2027 the hottest year ever measured, with global temperatures projected to land somewhere between roughly 1.67 and 1.85 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Housefather described the scale of it simply: no El Niño has ever run this hot, this early, in the entire modern record. Beyond the climate numbers, there's a real economic cost to events like this. Past strong El Niños have been expensive on a global scale. Past research covering events like 1982, 83, 1997, 98, and 2015-16 has estimated damages running into the trillions of dollars each, once you account for crop losses, disrupted supply chains, higher food prices, damaged fisheries, and infrastructure repair. Given that this event is forecast to be stronger than any of those three, it's reasonable to expect the economic disruption to match or exceed them, particularly in agriculture-dependent regions across Asia-Pacific, where rice, palm oil, sugar, and coffee production are all sensitive to the drought and flood swings El Niño brings. For anyone watching their grocery bill, coffee, wheat, and sugar are among the commodities most exposed to this kind of disruption. So what does all of this actually mean if you live in the United States over the next several months? If you're in Southern California, the Southwest, or anywhere along the Gulf Coast from Texas to Florida, treat this as a signal to prepare for a wetter, stormier winter than you've seen in years. Know your flood zone, keep emergency supplies stocked, and take evacuation orders seriously, especially if you're anywhere near a recent wildfire burn scar, where the mudslide risk becomes very real the moment heavy rain arrives. If you're in the northern tier, from the Pacific Northwest through the upper Midwest into New England, expect a generally milder winter with less snow than usual, but don't get complacent, because a sudden polar vortex disruption can still deliver a sharp, dangerous cold snap with little warning, and those events hit hardest in places that weren't expecting them. If you track food prices, keep an eye on coffee, wheat, sugar, and cooking oil, since all of those supply chains run through regions that are exposed to El Niño-driven drought and flooding. And if you're just trying to understand the bigger picture, here's the honest scientific takeaway. This isn't only a weather story, it's a preview of what happens when a natural cycle collides with an already warming planet. The ocean stores more heat than it used to, the atmosphere holds more moisture than it used to, and that means the swings between wet and dry, calm and catastrophic, get wider every time a strong El Niño comes through. Robert Rode said it plainly, we're getting conditions that should normally still be a decade away. Right now, in August 2026, the Pacific is still warming, the models are still trending upward, and the coming winter is shaping up to be one that meteorologists will be studying for years. If this breakdown helped you understand what's building, share it with someone in a region we covered today, and subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up once the winter forecasts firm up, because this event is only getting started.